Alright guys, thank you very much for joining and welcome back. Isn't time a weird thing nowadays? When you're not as busy, things take ages, don't they? They take a lot longer when you're sitting waiting. That's a mad thing. I hope you're all well. I understand that there is a lot going on in the world at the moment in this country. More specifically, it's not in my nature to try and scare anybody, but I would like to make people aware that there is a new strain of this COVID-19, and at the moment science and the government really don't know what it is. They're assuming, in fact, that actually it could be a lot worse and a lot stronger than COVID-19. I'm not warning and I'm not putting that out there to scare anybody. They're the facts. That's what's happening. That's what's began to start happening over the last couple of days. It's about awareness, isn't it? And making people aware so that you can just literally get ready. We've already been through this once. We've learned from it, so we can now implement what we learned from that last time into this next one. Hang tight, follow the instructions. And look, I mean, metaphorically speaking, if somebody offers you a cup of tea that they tell you it's got a disease in it, are you going to drink it? No, I doubt you would. But some people walking the streets, in the supermarkets, are that cup of tea. They have this virus, they have this disease, they don't even know it. So do whatever it takes to stay away from it. The way it's being considered that we as human beings should stay away from it is wear the masks, wash your hands, keep your distance away from other people. And those instructions couldn't be more serious than today because of this new strain, this new stronger strain. Who's anybody to say anything different? It has to be done. It's very, very important that it needs to be done now. If we don't, expect lockdown 4, 5, 6 and for this to carry on well into 2022-23. You should all know that by now anyway, but honestly you'll be surprised how many people actually don't believe it, first of all, and who are not following these instructions based on that they don't believe it. It's absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, I'm sure it's been said 1,000 times in your lifetime already. It just goes to show the level of importance of it. That's why it's been said so many times. And this is just another time. Okay, let's move on. So today, this is quite a good little video actually. And well, all credit goes to the creator of the video. I've been given permission to run through Steve Niparellis's interview and talk about it and share my thoughts. There are numerous characters in this story, and one of them being Niparellis. Niparellis is, or was, a close friend of Pat Tate. And just recently, he made a revelation that after all these years of fighting and Mick and Jack saying they're innocent and the underworld saying they're innocent, Niparellis just recently came out with it that he knows who killed Tony Pat Craig, and he tells us that it was his dad who did it after all this time. It's an interesting revelation, and like I say, I've been given permission to go through this interview, picking out the interesting bits and talking about them, so that's what we're going to do today. Before I start, obviously without question, all credit to the creator of this interview. It's a good interview. It's professional and it's well made, for one. And, you know, just very quickly, I'm not blowing smoke up this guy's ass for giving me permission. I'm just, you know, I'm telling you what I think and what I've seen. And even the layout of this interview is professionally done. I mean, if they've cast some kind of illusion to make it look like that when it really wasn't, then they've done a good job. Let's put it that way. I've been given permission to go through the interview. I've also been given permission to tell you that there are going to be more interviews. I don't know if you know, but this interview has actually gone nationwide. It actually got into the national papers. And because of that, the creator of this interview initially has been approached by a lot of different people. And it's safe to say that at the moment, there's a lot going on. There's a lot in the pipeline regarding this channel. I can only suggest, if you're interested in this story and you're interested in the details of this story and the characters, it's absolutely worth it to subscribe to this channel. It's called Liquid Bullet Productions. The link to the channel is down below. Do go and check it out. The guy who's conducting the interview with Nipper here is a doorman, and as far as I know, he was a doorman in and around those times in the 90s going through the noughties, and still up to today. You know, I haven't actually been given permission to say that, but there are some personal videos of his on the doors. So if you're going to go and look at his channel, expect to see those. What I'm saying is, if you subscribe to the channel, because A, there's going to be more on this. There's another interview with Nipper coming up. That should take the roof off. That should go into the stratosphere. And then obviously, as time prevails, because it does take a lot of time to get all this sorted, there will be other interviews with extra detail. That's all we're trying. That's all we're getting. That's all we're going to gain from this, is the details that we don't know from different people's points of view. People who actually worked with Pat, they'll have stories. They'll have intimate details. They'll have other details that we don't know about, that we can't read about. So it's going to be worth it. Subscribe, stick that notification bell on so that you get a notification every time he uploads. Show him your love and support. After all, it is creating entertainment for your own entertainment. It should be appreciated. And most of all, good luck to the man. You know, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be really, really interesting in the next few weeks. And then what you can call is extracurricular on top of that with the other interviews. Good luck with it all. And ultimately, thank you very much for what you've done so far with the first interview of Nipper. I mean, it's a great idea and very well executed. So let's get on with it. I'm not going to go through every single question and talk about every single question. I'll be taking the piss. But after listening to the answers that Nipper gives to these questions, which, by the way, are just from random people from the internet Facebook groups on this case, and great questions as well. Obviously, the answers spawn a lot of thought, a lot of feeling, a lot of, well, what if, this, that, and the other, you know? The connections. I'm literally just sharing mine. My thoughts, my feelings, my emphasis on it. That's it. And I feel honoured and privileged to be able to bring this to you and share my thoughts. So again, thank you very much. So the first question that spawned a bit of an idea is this one.
First question, can we start with how you got the name Nipper?
When I was in Nick with Pat in 1990, yeah, it was 1990, crikey. Was it 1990? Yeah, it was 1990, yeah. Basically, he got the spy holes in the cell doors. And his little joke was that there was a nose appeared at the door of the spy hole going, "What do I do for arms, Pat? What do I do for arms?" So because I had a bit of trouble looking at the spy hole, he used to call me Nipper. So I said, sure. Although I think he got it wrong.
Okay, so first of all, I need to stress that these are just thoughts and their feelings. I actually don't think this anymore. Let me explain what I'm talking about. Okay, first of all, a while ago there was a bit of a rumour going around that Darren Nichols was a plant. Somebody had said that, you know, there's absolutely no knowledge, there's absolutely no documents to say that Darren Nichols existed before prison, before Pat Tate. And he was a plant. He was actually planted by the police. People have come forward since saying that they went to school with Darren Nichols. I myself have made a video showing that he absolutely existed in 1988. I show his driving license and his passport that was dated in 1988. So he absolutely existed then. That was well before the prison sentence of Pat Tate. When I first heard Nipper talking like this, I got that aha moment. This is from the horse's mouth, isn't it? This is directly from the horse's mouth saying that this man befriended Pat Tate. This man approached Pat Tate and started befriending him. This is how he got his name, right? Nipper. Interestingly, he still goes by that name that Pat Tate gave him. And still to this day, he is Nipper Ellis. So meeting Pat actually meant something to Nipper. So much so that he's kept the name. You know what I mean? He doesn't hate Pat that much, because otherwise, like, he would be like, you call me that, fuck you, I don't want anything to do with you. You know, I'm not even having your name anymore. Do you know what I'm saying? And him talking like this, that he went up to, he was always at Pat's door, so, you know, what do I do for arms, what do I do for chest now? It gave me that impression that he was befriending Pat. And then the thought came that, actually, okay, there is talk about there being plans by the police to try and befriend these people. This is coming from Nipper himself, saying that, yeah, he actually befriended Pat. So, overall, it could be said that Nipper was the plant. Do you know what I'm saying? That was the first kind of thought process that went through after I heard him talking like that. However, fast forward a few months, he's actually shooting Pat and trying to kill him. Which, you know, you can't say somebody who's working for the police or under police surveillance or whatever you want to call a plant. There's absolutely no way that they're going to do that. You know, you kind of forget these things when you're going through it. Being a plant is one thought, but then actually trying to murder 3 people as being a plant under police authority, it kind of, you know, it renders that thought obsolete. So although the initial thought was that actually this is proof and evidence from the man himself that it was he who latched on and befriended Pat. And then you gotta think, well, actually, a lot of people did that. You know what I mean? A lot of people would have done that. You know, there are photographs out there that Pat Tate was very well known, very well liked. He's got photographs of him in prison in his cell with a load of other people as well. So, you know, it only goes without saying that he was a well-known bloke, an approachable bloke. He was a nice bloke at one point, Pat was. So for Nipper to say that he latched on and became his friend, it's probably just normal, you know. But again, it's an interesting thought, isn't it? And it would actually, thinking about it, it would actually make a lot of sense if Nipper was a plant, let's face it, because eventually Pat Tate went to live with him, you know what I mean, and then he was introduced to Tony and Craig. And that's probably another reason that knocks that thought that he was a plant out of the ballpark, you know, because Nipper was introduced to Tucker a little bit later on through Pat. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, it was just a thought, and, you know, I'm sharing that. That's what these are about. Again, I don't believe that anymore because of those simple reasons that he tried to kill all 3 of them. And what's the point in being a plant to watch over Pat Tate on his own? Pat Tate didn't know Tucker and Craig whilst he was in prison for the Happy Eater. Do you know what I'm saying? So kind of, again, it just squashes that thought of anybody being a plant. But admittedly, it did try to connect itself onto that plant theory. Okay, and following that point of interest is this question.
Did Tony, Pat and Craig ever get set about and lose?
Individually, I heard another story with Pat. There was a guy called Mick McCarthy. Well, there is a guy called Mick McCarthy. He's just been shot and he's crippled now. But years ago, there was a bit of bad blood between them two. And one day, they happened to be in the same place. Words were exchanged, and Pat said to Mick, "It's about time someone taught you a lesson, McCarthy." So they went outside, and there was one punch thrown, and basically Pat was spun a couple of times before he fell on. He was unconscious before he hit the deck. His jaw was smashed to pieces. Until the day he died, he still had it held together with bands. So Mick threw one punch, Pat was out. Another time, I've heard a few stories of Tony getting bashed up. Tony was a piece of shit, he was a bully. Pat wasn't so much of a bully in the old days. And then together, I don't know, there was a row once we had outside Stringfellas, not Stringfellas, sorry, that's a lie. Churchill's in Southend. There was 3 doormen there. There was me, Pat and Tony. We didn't really lose, but that's the only fight I sort of know that they had when they were together. There might be times, obviously, after I fell out with them, they had rows, but Tony wasn't that good. Pat was, he was a fight, but he weren't nothing special. I wouldn't want to fight him.
Okay, so you heard it for yourself there. He mentioned somebody called Mick McCarthy. He expresses that today he's been shot and he's crippled at this point. Now, I know somewhere in these videos that I've been making, we've been through this, or he's been mentioned. I just, for the life of me, can't find where it was said. It was in like the second half of our video somewhere. And the reason I'm saying that is because I'm more than sure this wasn't what I showed in that video. This is dated the 22nd of October 2011. But this is the story what was mentioned in that other bit. Okay, it's mentioned that there's somebody was sat in, Mick McCarthy was sat with his wife in a cafe, and he gets shot in the head. Somebody walks up to him and shoots him in the head. Now, I don't know if this was published in 2011. I'm more than sure, although I can't find the actual source and I can't find the bit in the video. If you're following these videos and you know which bit it is, please can you let me know. I think this happened around 94, 5, 6, 97, 98 into the early 2000s, and I believe that this article is only just published in 2011. And the reason I'm saying that is because there's a car in it. It's like a red Mark III Ford Escort, and they're the old cars, you know, they're the old Escorts that were around in the 90s, early 2000s possibly, but not so much in 2011. So just for the sake of this, you know, I'm not going to say that he was shot in 2011, because I honestly believe he wasn't, and it was a lot earlier. But I have a feeling this is what Nipper's talking about. This is who he's talking about. He's saying, look, there was a man critical. There's a man critical in hospital last night after he was shot in the head as he sat with his wife in a cafe. Michael McCarthy, 45, of Wickford, Basildon, Essex, was sitting with his wife Beverly in her father's cafe in the town when a gunman came through a back door, walked up to Mr. McCarthy and shot him twice with a handgun. One bullet hit him in the head, the other is thought to have missed. Police found both cartridges. The man swore at Mr. McCarthy before shooting him and walking out of the front door, according to one of about a dozen other customers present. So not a nice ordeal. However, I mean, it absolutely would suggest that this Mick McCarthy, he was the target. He may have done something wrong to this bloke. To get a shot in the head for no reason is quite unheard of, wouldn't you say? And so it goes without saying that this Mick McCarthy has done something. You don't just walk up to somebody, swear at them and shoot them in the head for nothing. And overall it gives us a better picture of what Pat was like and what Pat was involved in, because if this bloke's getting shot in the head for the things he's doing, obviously Pat, according to Nipper, has walked up to Mick McCarthy. They knew each other. If it's the same Mick McCarthy, obviously they knew each other. Pat offered him out. Mick McCarthy battered Pat with one punch. So it just goes to show that this Mick McCarthy could have been quite a big bloke. Pretty hard, because Pat was massive. Obviously not scared of the size of Pat, being offered out by Pat and then coming out on top. That's some geezer, isn't it? There is a level of hardness there. Interesting that Nipper's saying they weren't all that. All three of them weren't all that. You know, like Tony Tucker was more of a bully, and putting a bit more of an essence onto that word bully. What does a bully mean? To me, it means that you're quite forceful into trying to get other people to do things that you want them to do. Like, you're gonna do this whether you like it or not. Do it or you're dead. You know, like a lot of threats. If you say no to something that he's asking of you, you're in trouble. You're pushed into doing it. And it would seem it is that kind of you are gonna do it or you'll be met with violence. I think that's the way it kind of ended. But he's saying that even that, the bully side of Tony especially, got Tony into trouble. You know, he's saying that he heard of Tony got beat up a few times, which serves himself right if he is going around bullying people. There's a lot of this anti-bullying thing that is going around in society today, isn't there? You know, over the last 5-10 years, it's erupted. Anti-bullying, no bullying. People are killing themselves because of this bullying. God bless their soul. So there is a massive impact when you come across a bully, when you do bully yourself. You know, there is a massive impact on people. And so saying serve yourself right to a bully is the right thing to do. And this got me a little bit. This bit here, right at the end of what Nip is saying here. I wouldn't want to fight him. Pat was a big bloke. I wouldn't want to fight him. Listen.
But he weren't nothing special. I wouldn't want to fight him.
But, I mean, he tried to kill him. He shot him. He went round and shot him. He went round his bungalow and shot the bloke. I think he means fisticuffs, you know what I mean? Like a fist-to-fist fight. You know, and actually that kind of explains it, doesn't it? The reason why he shot Pat was because he wouldn't want to fight him. Couldn't fight him. There was no way, you know, he's just too big. He may not have wanted to fight Pat, but he wasn't scared. Or he was scared, you know, being scared, the fear got the better of him, so he armed himself instead of cowering away in a corner. You know, he armed himself and actually tried to neutralise the threat. So, a brave nipper, you know what I mean? He may have been, can't fight these people, but I can fucking shoot you, you know, that sort of thing. Right, this next question has actually spawned a lot of controversy, I suppose you could call it. A lot of questions, more theory than not, all because of this dialogue that Nipper is talking about, or what he says.
Question from Richard Child. In the days leading up to the murders, were you made aware of any reason why Steele and Holmes would want to kill Tony, Pat and Craig?
No, but I was living down in Swanage then, so I was out of touch with what was going on. After I shot Pat the first time, it really sort of finished our relationship, our friendship. We didn't stay in touch much. So after I got out from shooting him, I moved down to Dorset, Swanage, and I wasn't in touch with anybody. So I was in touch with my family and a couple of friends, but nothing to do with Pat, Tony and Craig. So I had to get out of town.
There's that little bit there, you heard it for yourself. When I shot Pat the first time, it's obviously going to spawn all those questions that, look, he said the first time, which insists that he's done it twice or more than once. And everybody who thinks that is absolutely right to question that, you know, because they are his words. He actually says that. When I shot Pat the first time, it does insist, doesn't it, that he's shot him twice, or shot him more than once. We're only going to know for sure if Nipper answers the question to what he means there. Personally, from here, from listening to that, I would say he means the first time Pat was shot. Again, he may not, I might be wrong, but I'm more than sure that he does. You know, he means, he could actually say the first time Pat was shot, when I shot him the first time. Instead, he says when I shot Pat the first time. I wouldn't say it's a slip of the tongue. He's answered this question and told this thing so many times, right? It's practiced. And it goes without saying that he knows, Nipper knows what he's talking about. And in his mind, he will be assuming people already know this. And people are automatically going to know what he means by it because he said it so many times before. It should be automatic that when he says the first time and when he's mentioning that bit about Pat and being the first time he got shot, people should know that by now, you know, that he means the first time Pat got shot. First time he shot him. Not so much a slip of a tongue, but he's just got that bit the wrong way round. Again, might be wrong. Let Nipper answer it. And this next answer is the first of the bunch, really, of this interview. He says this a few times, and I actually believe this. The way Nipper's saying this is believable. He's absolutely positive about this, isn't he?
Next question from Nikki Dabble. Have the murderers' names ever been mentioned in the press? If not, Jack Holmes or Mickey Steele?
The murderers' names, as far as I know, has never been mentioned. Mickey Steele and Jack Williams had nothing to do with it. Absolutely nothing to do with it. I don't know where they were on that night, but I know they wasn't in the Rettendon area where the Range Rover was. I know who was, and they definitely weren't frigging there.
Confident, isn't it? That is confidence, to say the least. And in a way, I suppose you've got to be really brave. If you're lying there and saying that, you've got to be quite brave. Because at the very least, if Mick and Jack are guilty, you're going to end up looking a little bit stupid when you're saying things like that with that level of certainness. Absolutely had nothing to do with it. He does actually get something wrong in that. He says that, you know, that Mick and he don't know where they were. They weren't in that area of Rettendon. Jack Womes admits that he was. He admits that he was just down the road in the wheat sheaf, which is in Rettendon. And it's a bit confusing because, you know, if Jack was down there at the wheat sheaf, you know, that would actually suggest that Nipper doesn't even know those details, does he? He doesn't know those details of what Mick and Jack have said. And then that could actually be construed as Nipper hasn't actually been following what happened to Mick and Jack, you know, which then again would go on to say that Nipper really doesn't know what happened, because without question they're the facts, aren't they? Jack Worms admits to being just down the road at the wheat sheaf. Nipper here clearly is saying that, you know, they weren't there in the Rettendon area. Well, sorry, but they were. Well, Jack was. Like I say, that was just one of the bunch. This is the second time he mentions that Mick and Jack had nothing to do with this, and this is right up my alleyway. Actually, this is, you know, these are the details, and this is, I mean, I can relate to what he's saying here. I personally believe everything. When I say I believe what he's saying, I've always had that belief that Mick and Jack are innocent. So when Nipper's talking here about them being, I'm actually on I'm on the same boat. I'm on the same level. I'm on the same page. Yeah, me too, sort of thing. You know what I mean? This is the second time in this interview that he says it.
The majority didn't believe the evidence was enough to put Jack and Mick behind bars. Surely a few of the other people knew they were going to do a meet that night, and with who?
There's no reason to put Mick. It was a complete stitch up where Mick and Jack got banged up for it. They had nothing to do with it. It was because some silly little wannabe drug dealer got nicked, and he couldn't do a bit of bird, that he had to deal with the old bill. I won't go into that now. I can talk about it some other time, but it goes deep. But they had nothing to do with it. It's just totally wrong.
Again, it's believable, isn't it? It's just confirming and reassuring, really, that he personally believes that they're innocent. But it's borderline in, he actually knows for certain, he knows for a fact that it wasn't them. And for sure, it's not one of those, like, you know, I heard those talking about it, I believe what they say, so yeah, I'm going to say it as well. He actually knows, you know what I mean? That oozes that he knows that Mick and Jack are innocent. He actually goes into some depths a little bit later on. There are a series of questions about Mick and Jack's innocence here, and he goes on to say that Nipper actually testified. He wanted to testify to say that absolutely hands down it was not these people. He wanted to defend Mick and Jack in court. He even went on to speak to their solicitor.
I was willing to stand up in court and swear black was blue. I spoke to Mick and Jack's solicitor, obviously before they went to trial, and I said, look, I'm happy to stand up in court and swear black was blue. I did it. Because I know who did it, and I know they didn't have anything to do with it. But I was quite happy to stand up in court and say that, and the solicitor, no, you can't do that, you can't do that. I went, why not? I said, you've got two guys going on trial for something they've never done. I said, let me stand up there and do that. And if I had, what's the worst they're going to do? Charge me with it? Fine, then you've got to prove it. But I could have quite happily stood up there and said that I'd done it. Because I'd love to have killed them. I'd love to have killed them.
Very interesting that he says that he would have stood up there and said that he'd done it, because he would have loved to have done it. There's some importance to that, and it's important because he was willing, I suppose, to have served onto him a life sentence for doing so. You know, it seems a bit of a crazy thing to say, really. He would have loved to, I can only imagine that's what he means. He would have loved to, wouldn't have, he would have done, you know, he by all means would have absolutely gladly said, I put my hands up, it was me who did it. Had he have done it, you know what I mean? Sounds like he would have actually got off a little bit on knowing that he did it, and wouldn't have cared about the consequences. If you haven't seen my series Nipper's War, it's a 3-hour long series. It's called Nipper's War 1, 2 and 3, the finale. It goes through in depth a lot of the details that Nipper has said in the past in interviews. It's like a rundown on it. 3 hours long. It's good. Go and watch it if you haven't seen it. He was at war with these people. He tried to kill them, and he would have killed them had he had the chance. Not only would he have killed them, he would have loved to say he did, even though he would have bragged it from the rooftops had he had done. You know what I'm saying? Right, okay, this next one is very interesting because it's a question about Bernie. Now, considering the outcome of this interview and the revelation that Nipper projects, there's a lot riding for Bernie on this revelation being true or false. There has to be. This is what was asked, and this is how Nipper approached the question.
Next question from Jason Townsend. What is your true opinion of Bernard O'Mahony, and is the book being made into a movie?
My opinion of Bernie, we've never been friends. No, I've never been friends with him. He's got himself a nice little niche in the market where he's made some money and some films and some books out of this, but it's been flogged to death in my opinion. When you say the book, I presume you mean the book that Bernie and I wrote. Or I told Bernie, who'd been on me for years, to write a book. Got sick and tired of hearing all these different stories, so I said, fine, we'll write a book. So we sat down, we had quite a few interviews, discussions, whatever you want to call it. He wrote the book, I started reading the book, and there was things in it, I only read, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 chapters. And I read about where I fold my teeth down. There was all blood and bits of teeth and whatever. It wasn't, it hurt. Yeah, but when it stopped so much, I stopped. You know, how stupid am I? I'm not going to keep on filing my teeth down when it really hurts. I'm not that stupid, am I? There was a couple other things I didn't think were right in the book. So I phoned Bernie up and said, that's not right, this is not right, I don't want that in it. I said, the idea of the book is to tell the truth. He went, yeah, but that's what the readers want. And I said, no, Bernie, I don't want it in there. So he said, yeah, we're going to put it in there. I said, no. I said, I want the book pulled. I don't want... So he said, well, if you don't want it going out, you've got to pay the money back. They gave me $7 grand for the book, I think it was. And he said, well, you've got to pay the money back. I said, well, I ain't got the money, I spent it. So he said, well, the book's going to be published. So I don't know what's in the book. People who buy it or read it, whatever, hear about it. If there's anything they want me to answer, fine, I'll answer it. I haven't got a problem with that. But what's in there, I don't know. So...
Okay, Bernie made a reply about this interview and what Nipper said. I'm not going to go through it. It is available to see on Bernie's page on Facebook. It is made public. In a nutshell, Bernie, he's written all this, and basically just Nipper actually backs up what Bernie's saying here in a roundabout way. Bernie's response to Nipper's interview about it being his dad that shot Tony Craig, Bernie wrote this, saying that this is what Nipper said in his book. Now, Nipper in his interview has just said he doesn't know what was in that book. So it kind of crosses... I don't know how to explain that off the top of my head. You know, Nipper's book is, you can use that word fabricated to make it good. You know, if what Nipper's saying is correct about that book, Bernie and the authors of that book, that publishers, have made some of it up to fit in there to make it good, because Nipper's saying he doesn't even know what's in it. So, you know, that actually brings me nicely on to the point of sharing this in the first place. Bernie should be cacking it a little bit. He should be quaking in his boots just a tiny bit, because if it turns out that it's proven that it wasn't Mick and Jack, that means that Bernie has actually been writing his books and his film. There's an essence of naivety, maybe, but it may be that Bernie never has really known who killed them, doesn't give a shit, couldn't give a shit. They were all pieces of shit, didn't like it, didn't get on with them. They deserved what they got, but I'm writing about it because it's what I know. His story's in there, so he writes about what and how the case went. That's basically, in a nutshell, what he's done with the truth and his books. If Nipper's telling the truth, and if it was Nipper's dad who shot Tony Patton Craig, it means Bernie's books are wrong, his films are wrong, and they will be pulled. The Essex Boys saying that, you know, well, the book Essex Boys actually says that, you know, there is new evidence that claims that Mick and Jack didn't do it, and it backs up the claim that they are innocent. That's when Bernie was on that horse of trying to fight for Mick and Jack's innocence. But the last book, The Truth, and the film, The Truth, is completely false. And they will have to be pulled, which means Bernie's going to lose out. And, you know, I don't know the details. I really don't know how it can be pursued after that. But I'm more than sure he can be sued big time for it. Well, you know, that's just guessing. So I would suggest, in the eyes of Bernie, he can only hope that what Nip is saying here is false and untrue, for his own professional reputation. I don't know how far it would go, you know, if it actually turns out that Nipper can prove this, that his dad shot Tony Pat Craig. I don't know how far it could go with Bernie. He could have all of his work pulled, you know, and he's going to lose face. He's going to lose his reputation. He's going to lose the trust and the faith that he's got from publishers that his word is true, because he's in the true crime sector. This is not true crime that he's been writing about. He's been writing about something that's false, you know. But I'm just speculating, guessing. I don't know how all that works. Whatever happens, Nipper is adamant that Bernie knows nothing about these murders. You know, it's a very curious answer. It's a very thought-provoking answer, because, you know, it lands Bernie in the shit, really. You know, again, if it's all true and if it can be proved and if it's all right, it's damaging for Bernie. And this is what Nipper says about that.
Next question from Nigel Martin. If we were to believe that you and Bernard O'Mahony took out Tate, Tucker and Rolf, how would this timeline of events work out in the theories?
I didn't know anyone had said that Bernie and I had taken out Pat, Tony and Craig. Bernie had nothing to do with the murders. He knows nothing about murders, right? He might have spoke to, how can I say, one of the brothers of them who've been charged. There was Mickey Steele and Jack Wones who got done for the murders, right? John Wones, who has become a friend of mine, and I know John and Bernard were friends years ago. They've had a few problems and not so much good friends now. But so when you get charged with something, it's called advanced disclosure. The police give you all the evidence of the crime. So when it goes to court, you can say, right, in regards to this, I got that answer. In regards to this, I got that answer. So whatever the police gave to Mickey Steele and Jack Wones and their defence in regards to the murders, John would have known about it. He would have told Bernie. But what actually happened on the night, none of them will know. The police might be able to put it together, but I don't know if they ever have done. But nobody knows what happened in the murder. I know what happened because I know I was there. The person who shot them knew what was happening, and there was another person there, right? They knew what happened, right? But as for Bernie, he knows nothing about the murders. He only would know what John might have told him that they got from the police. But he don't know, as far as I know, he doesn't know who killed them. Well, he definitely don't know who killed them. So Bernie had nothing to do with the murders. I unfortunately had nothing to do with the murders, but I know who did it, and I know what happened.
I made a video called Bernie in Danny Dyer's Deadliest Men, and in it I personally claim to know where Bernie gets his information about this Essex Boys case. He gets it from the case. He was there, he was following it, he knows exactly what happened. He was following that case from day one. He knows exactly what happened. He was involved with Tony Pat Craig, and it's in Bernie's interest to know all these details, exactly what happened. Nipper here is telling you that he was friends with John because of the innocent side of things. Bernie used to stand and fight for Mick and Jack's innocence. And as Nipper's saying here, Jack, John, Mick, they would have had that advanced disclosure, which was all the evidence that the police had given to them. John being friends with Bernie wanted to know all these details about what had happened. If he's going to fight for them, he needs to know. he would have been given them. He would have seen them. So that's what Bernie talks about. But because Bernie knows these details, it does insist, and it looks like Bernie knows them because of something more sinister. Because there's this innocent side that somebody else killed them. If it wasn't Mick and Jack, who was it? How does Bernie know? It begs that question. How does he know? He must have been there. Well, no, he knows because he's got all the information from the case. He's friends with the people who are in the case. He's given documents to read through and see, and Bernie's taken all those details and eventually, unfortunately for John, Mick and Jack, kind of used them against them, because now he's turned the tides and gone on the rampage that they're absolutely guilty. Which, overall, if you look at it from a bird's eye view, that bit where he turns the tides and goes against them, start saying that they are guilty, actually looking at it, that's a mistake. It's that reversal that actually could cause a lot of problems. Anyway, moving on. This next question, the answer to this next question is actually really important. I can only talk about it afterwards, so listen to this.
Question from Lee Hayworth. What went through your head when you shot at Pat Tate and the gun didn't fire at first?
Well, all I knew was I think it was 5 or 6. It was a revolver, so it had 5 or 6 shots in it. I knew what I had to do. I put the window through so I could see, because where Pat was in the bungalow, that was him and Sarah's bungalow, and his son Jordan was there. Jordan would have been only about a year by then. So I smashed the window. I sort of went into like a road, just went into the mode of what I had to do. So I smashed the window to make sure I'd just see Pat, I could only shoot Pat, put the gun up, and I just knew I had to keep pulling the trigger. So I was pulling the trigger, he's run out of the bathroom, so the bathroom was like L-shaped, so he's run out of the bathroom, and he runs to the next window. Because I've been in the bungalow, I knew the set out of the bungalow, so he's run to the next window, which was the kitchen. So I've run to the kitchen, lifted up the gun again, but he's seen me, screamed. He was screaming anyway, because he'd been shot, and it must have hurt. Well, it did hurt. So he's then run out of the kitchen before I could take a shot, and he's run down the passage. Like I say, I knew the layout of the bungalow. So I've run down the side of the bungalow, thinking he was going to come out the front door. So I just stood there with the gun, waiting for him to come out. And all of a sudden I've heard, police, I've been shot. So obviously he got on the phone. So I just ran off, buggered off. So what went through my mind? Nothing. But it was later, when I got back, I looked at the gun, and I see 2 of the bullets, the percussion caps had been, on the centre of a bullet, and the percussion cap's what makes it fire. They'd been dented. So it turned out the gun had a fault with the trigger. It wasn't actually a trigger, it was hit a bit of metal plate that was on a pivot, and that hit the bullet, but the nipple on the bit of plate was worn.
It wasn't going far enough to...
Yeah, to ignite. So it was the 3rd bullet that went. So when I put the gun up, all I knew was I had to keep firing. That's all I went into. So I was obviously going bang, it was going click, click. The 3rd one hit me in the arm. He said he put his arm out the window, see the gun, and put his arm up, and that's how he got hit in the arm. It wasn't. He was running away, for some reason. As he ran out the door, because like I say, it was L-shaped, he's gone sideways, so the bullet smashed into his arm. So while he was busy screaming and running, I was then going to the next window to shoot him. Just knew I had to shoot him, but it wasn't only when I got home and I looked at the bullets, I then realised what had happened. Like, it didn't misfire, it just didn't have the...
It hadn't penetrated through.
Yeah, and it hit the percussion cap hard enough.
Okay, so first of all, we started with that bit about the plant and being a plant, and possibly it could be considered that it was Nipper who could have been the plant, because he was saying that it was he who befriended Pat in prison. Then obviously then the later details that come to would actually suggest that isn't true. These are the details that I was talking about in that little bit there, that would actually negate and render all that idea of being a plant useless, because Nipper is turning into a murderer here, right? Now that might sound a little bit exaggerated, but he wants to kill Pat, right? Now you've got to picture this, and you've got to take all this whole scenario into consideration, because it's ruthless, right? And what I mean by that is take Pat Tate out of the scenario here, this situation, right? Nipper has gone round to this bungalow, which is a residential area. It's in Gordon Road. You know, we have a statement from somebody who lives next door to Pat Tate, right? Nipper shot Pat in 1994. That statement says that the bungalow was left to him by his grandmother who lived there. And so the neighbours are elderly people. There's a row of bungalows in the street. Okay, in 1994, what I'm saying by ruthless is in 1994, Sarah and the child was living there with Pat in that bungalow. And Nipper has gone round with a gun to murder Pat. Nipper is a very dangerous man with that in consideration. Ruthlessness. He goes round there not caring that Sarah and the child could be in this place. He goes round not caring that it's a street that homes and houses elderly people. It's a residential area. And he tells us in this story here that he's telling here that he went in with a full barrel and he's clicking, the gun's not going off. One of them hits him in the arm, but he wants to fire this whole gun full of bullets into Pat Tate. It could have killed him. And that's what Nipper wanted to do. He wanted to kill him. He wanted to murder him. Nipper was becoming a murderer. And he didn't care who saw it, you know. He shot Pat through the bathroom window. And Pat ran out screaming and went to the next window. Nipper followed him. So he was persistent that he was going to kill him. He was going to shoot him. The gun wasn't go off. It wasn't going off. And again, I'm guessing here, but this seems to be the story of a man who had done this kind of thing before. He's experienced with guns. He's experienced at shooting guns. It doesn't come across to me that this is the first time Nipper's got a gun and he's now he's needing to shoot this man. So, you know, this is the first time he's ever done it, and now he's going to do it through the window. It just simply doesn't come across like that. It's not the first time he's shot somebody. It would seem. That's all I'm saying. And with that level of ruthlessness as well, which overall, in a nutshell, bottom line means Nipper is a very dangerous person in this story. Don't underestimate him. That's what I'm saying. Now, I've been led to believe throughout time and history of looking into this story that Nipper tried to shoot Tony and Craig with a shotgun. I can't for the life of me remember where. I think it's in Bernie's documentary, one of his gangster documentaries, that Nipper himself says that he tried to do it with a shotgun, or it's portrayed that he did it with the shotgun at Tony and Craig. In his own words, he's saying that it was the same gun that he shot Pat with that he tried to shoot Tony and Craig with.
Next question's from Matt Curtis. What shotgun did you use to shoot Pat Tate, and why did it keep misfiring?
It wasn't a shotgun, it was a handgun, it was a revolver. And that was the same one that I tried to shoot Tony and Craig with, that I had the same problem. But a shotgun, they didn't catch me with a shotgun.
He says, clear as day, that was the same one that he tried to shoot Tony and Craig with, and he had the same problem. And they didn't catch him with a shotgun. I'm just the messenger. But if we're going to go with what Nipper has said, maybe it is from Bernie's bits, Bernie's books, Bernie's documentaries that have portrayed Nipper as having a shotgun to shoot Tony and Craig with. You know, I'm honestly trying to wrap my brains. I'm actually thinking it was Nipper, in his own words, in the interview, in his police interview, that he says that he tried to do it with the shotgun. But on face value, if we're going to go with what Nipper's saying here, it actually backs up the claim that the book of Bernie's, anything to do with Bernie's, is incorrect and has been fabricated somewhat. It's a little bit confusing, actually, with regards to what he means there with his gun, because he later goes on, he's asked another question, did he ever take a shot at Tony and Craig, and he says yes, and he gets the shotgun.
Just enjoying the moment, I'm reliving it. Oh, he screamed.
Next question from Stuart Bannon. Did you take a shot at Tony Tucker and Craig Rolfe?
Yes. I took a couple of shots. So, you know, I said I was driving around from my dad's to Tony's to Pat's to Craig's to Tony's to mine to my sister's. One day I was driving past mine, and at the back of that houses there was you had your alleyway, a massive alleyway that obviously separated all the back gardens. So as I was driving up the road, I've looked down the alley and I see Tony and Craig walking up the alley. So I phoned up someone, I said, get the pump down here, I need the pump. Pump action shotgun. So however long later they came down, probably 20 minutes, half hour. And with the pump, what I used to do was, I had a bit of string, whether I got it out of Terminator or not, I don't know. But I had the pump, sawn off pump, and I had it down by my shoulder. I had it put into my shoulder, and it was hanging down. So I started walking up the alley, and I heard this banging, which I didn't know what it was, I just heard this smashing. So I'm walking up the alley, and like I say, so the alley went between two lots of back gardens, lots on the left, lots on the right, and everyone's fence, their back garden fence, jutted out. So as I'm walking up the alley, I've got the handgun with me, and I've got the pump action, and I'm just doing whatever I was doing. I don't know whatever I was thinking. I was just going up there. I thought I'm going to kill him. So I'm walking up the alleyway, and like I say, there's this banging. Just all of a sudden, the banging stopped, and Tony and Craig have walked out from behind what was my fence. So as they've walked out, I've just for whatever reason, I've run behind another fence. I was 20 odd feet away, maybe 30 feet away. And Tony's gone to me, nipper. I went, fucking nipper. Held up the gun and pulled the trigger. But it didn't fire. So I've looked at the gun, and as I'm looking at the gun, I've looked up Craig's, they're carrying on my motorbike. I had a motorbike with all the levers and the helmets. So Craig's run behind a fence on the right-hand side, whereas I live on the left-hand side as I looked at it. So I've seen Craig run, and I've seen Tony on the floor going, oh, oh. He was crouched down going, oh, 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 like that. So with me, he's then looked up and seen me looking at the gun. So he stood up and he went, I'm going to do you for that, nipper. I went, you are you? Pointed the gun and pulled the trigger again. Where the bullet went, I don't know. But it fired. With that, they started running. So I dropped the handgun, I threw it down, pulled out the pump, and I was chasing them up the alley. And I was pulling the trigger on the pump. Just kept pulling it. All of a sudden, I've come running out of the alley after them, and it come out to where a school was, and the mums were collecting all the kids from the school. So I just, stopped. They went boing, 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 running off down the road. I put the pump back down, walked back down the alley, and one of the neighbours was looking out the window. Obviously heard the gun go off. So I picked the handgun up, walked down the alley and went. But it was the same problem, you know. I said the bullet that didn't hit the percussion cap hard enough. So when I went back afterwards, there was another dent in one of the bullets. So I only took one shot at them. And the reason the pump action didn't go off, I wasn't ready. I had the safety catch on. So where I was trying to pull the trigger on the pump action, because I hadn't taken the safety catch off, which is really good, because obviously you think when I come out the alley, there was mums and kids everywhere. Although hopefully the bullets would have got, or the lead would have got them, it didn't. So the question was, did I take a shot? Yes, I did.
Nipper does explain the guns, the handgun and the shotgun in this. That's self-explanatory. Right, as this interview goes through, the answers become more self-explanatory, and there's no ideas or thought that comes from what Nipper's answering. So the last thing I'd like to just pick up on, and obviously I've got something to say, more or less a lot to say, but I'm not going to be able to squeeze it in, But the last thing I'd like to talk about is that ultimate question, that revelation is announced, and it's this question here.
Final question. This is a question everyone wants to know. Who killed Pat, Tony and Craig?
My dad. I'll tell you what happened, right? As people know, my family were under a when it was all going pear-shaped, they threatened to cut one of my sister's fingers off. I've got 4 sisters. Sophie at the time was 5, Donnie was 14 or 15. So we had to go. I had a pump action, my dad had a shotgun. We went up to schools, got my sisters out. Right, my dad, my stepmum and 2 of my sisters went. My other sisters did. We got them out of town and I went after them. All right. When I got nicked, after Colton, I spoke to Colton and told him to shoot me in the head. All right. He got them off my family, yeah, and I was told to leave town. Okay, so, but the thing was, if they caught me, they would take my arms and legs off, or they would kill me. So will you make sure they kill me? Because if they don't, even if I'm in a wheelchair, I'm going to kill them pieces of shit. My old man was still getting grief. A couple of days before they got killed, or a week before they got killed. He said he was walking up the street, and somebody drove past and shouted at Ellis, you piece of shit, we're going to get you. Talking to my dad. They knew where he lived. So anyway, go forward a few months. Damon Alvin, the grass on Ricky's case. A really good friend of mine, who was very close to my dad, knew that Damon was getting involved with a deal that was going to happen at the Rettendon Turnpike. So Damon has told my really good friend, who I'm not going to name because his family won't want his name brought up. Damon told my really good friend about he was going to meet with Pat, Tony and Craig. My good friend told my dad. So my dad and my good friend pumped Damon for all the information. All right? The deal was, it had already happened anyway. In this field at Rettendon, there'd already been a drop. A plane had come over from Holland, dropped off some drugs, it'd been successful. I don't know how many times it'd been done. It'd been done once already that I knew of, okay? So Pat, Tony and Craig had got to know about it. They weren't part of the deal. So Damon had met with Pat, Tony and Craig and said he can sort it out. How much he could have sorted out, I don't know. Right, I didn't know about it until afterwards. Right, my dad told me what had happened. He didn't tell me because I knew I wouldn't have wanted it. I wouldn't have wanted him involved, which when he told me, it fucked me head up. I was crying down the phone, and I said, basically, Damon put the deal together, right? My mate, who I'm not going to say, told my dad. So my mate and my dad, that night, my dad went up there, right? So Damon's in the car, or he's in the Range Rover with Pat, Tony and Craig. As you know, Craig was driving, Tony's sitting there, Pat's in the back. They get to the gate where you got all the photos. Damon's got out the car. He didn't know my old man was there. My old man knew what was going to happen. My old man had seen him pull up. He was where he had my pump action, right? So as Damon's got out to open the gate was padlocked. He's got out to open the gate. He's got pushed aside. My old man come round with a shotgun. Pat's in the back seat. He's seen the shotgun. So as the shotgun's pointed at him, he's gone like that. So the first shot took Pat in the ribs. He screamed like a bitch, right? Now, when you hear a shotgun, it's frigging loud. It's deafening. So you're in the confined space of a Range Rover, yeah? What's his name? Craig's driving. So the idea was to try and take Craig out straight away because he was driving. But Pat's seen the shotgun come round. Because as Damon got out, Pat went like that. The shotgun's come round. Pat's seen the shotgun, gone like that. He got blast there. So it's bang, bang, bang. Pat got shot. Then he put one in Craig's head. Then he put one in Tony's head. They'd frozen. The sound in that Range Rover must have been freaking deafening. So Craig and Tony didn't know what happened. They were dead, one shot in the head. Then he's walked round the back of the Range Rover. Pat's on the window wasn't broke. Pat's like, he's crying, whimpering, whatever he was doing. He got shot in the head through the window. Then he walked back round, put another one in Tony's, put another one in Craig's. Damon was a frigging mess. He was screaming. He didn't know what was going to happen. He didn't know that my old man. He didn't know he knew my old man, but he didn't know what happened. So, and Damon fucked his head up, and then he's turned into a piece of shit years later and grassed up Ricky. But the reason I never said who done it, because how can I explain it? Mick and Jack, I always thought were going to get out. Everyone knew they was innocent, but I'm telling the story now because my dad's dead. He died 4 years ago. And my dad wouldn't care about me telling him. But he wouldn't care less. We got no problems. So, but he phoned me up on that morning, and I remember him, of course I remember him phoning me up. He phoned me up, he said, they're dead. I said, oh. He said, Pat, Tony, Craig got them. I said, what you done, Dad? And he was just telling me, he was laughing. I just started crying. I thought, fucking hell, he's going to get nicked. And then I didn't sort of believe him, and I couldn't believe it. But it wasn't until later that night that it was on the radio. All day I'd had the radio on listening to the news. And yeah, it said that Pat, Tony and Craig had been killed. Like my dad said, in the Rettendon Range Road, in the Rettendon Turnpike. And yeah, he did it for me, because he knew at the time I was going to get him. I had a grenade. I thought I still had my pump, but my old man had got me pumped, because he knew where I buried the guns. Right? And my plan was to get them as they come out of Tony's. I was just going to shoot them in Tony's Porsche and throw the grenade through the window. But my old man beat me to it.
So that last bit there, just picking up on that bit, that just actually goes and connects with how ruthless and dangerous Nipper Ellis actually is. Because he's talking about having all these guns. Don't forget, all these guns were, I was just about to say, illegal in those days. They weren't. It's very important to know that that handguns were legal back in those days in 1995. They were banned in the UK, where in 1997, 98. Because of the Dunblane massacre that happened in Scotland, which was absolutely definitely after the shootings of Tony, Pat and Craig. Handguns were legal, then there was a ban on them. There's shotguns, obviously illegal shotguns, sawn-off shotguns he's talking about, and grenades. You're not allowed, obviously grenades are illegal. Nipper having a grenade and wanting to throw it through the window of a Porsche whilst they're in there to blow them up is not considered to be a pussycat. Do you know what I'm saying? It just goes along those same lines. I mean, put it this way, if Nipper had that grenade on him when he shot Pat, he would have used it. He would have thrown it in and he would have blown Pat up. You know what I mean? Let's just say that. In the video previous, where on the Essex Boys Case on my channel, I wrote a video called Bernie's Innocent. In that, it considers the fact that it wasn't Damon Alvin in the Range Rover, but it was Bernie. And the reason why, obviously, the Nippers changed the name of Damon Alvin and Bernie is because Bernie's still alive, and Nipper hates Damon Alvin for what he's done to Ricky Percival, who's still in prison. Can't believe that sentence, 28 years. So if it was Bernie in there, he was... Go and have a look at that video. I'm not going to say anything else about that. These are just my thoughts again. So go and have a look at that video called Bernie's Innocent. That's my thoughts, my views on that little bit there. He says there was a drop. Okay, there was a drop of drugs already in Rettendon in that field. Okay, and that itself is very interesting, because going back to what Craig was saying to Donna Jaggers that evening, or what Donna Jaggers says Craig was saying to him, that there was a drop. They're waiting for Mick to come. They're waiting for this snow to clear so that they can find out where this plane's going to be landing. Okay, so Nipper's talking about this drug drop. Okay, it's been mentioned in previous videos of mine, myself. I made a video called Fourth Man in the Range Rover, Darren Nichols, and there's the other video of Mick in his plane. That considers the fact that there was a drug drop, and it was Mick Steele who dropped it in his plane, and it backs up the theory that Mick Steele was actually in Bullfan as well. If you haven't seen that, please do go and have a look. It shows you there's an airfield in Bullfan, and it would make sense that Mick came over, dropped those drugs as it was supposed to happen. We went and landed in Bullfan, and then Tony Pan Craig were there to steal these drugs and then got killed for them. Okay, what Nipper's saying here is that instead of getting killed for the drugs, they got killed because of what they were doing to the family, but they were up there looking for the drugs that had been dropped by Mick. Now, there are other drug drops that were in and around that area in those times. There was £500,000 worth of cannabis found in a lake not so far away in East Haddonfield. Then there was the talk of the cannabis, the dud cannabis that Darren Nichols had dumped. So it does make sense that they're up there for this drug drop. It's always been that they were up there for this drug drop. Personally, I would like to think there was a drug drop. You know, that makes more sense than what Nichols is saying to me. There was a drug drop. It was Mick. He did drop it, and Tony Pan Craig were there to collect. Okay, and as they were there to collect, they got shot. Now, if that's the case, that would suggest that they've picked those drugs up and been shot, and Nipper's dad has stolen the drugs. Or it would suggest that Damon Alvin has taken those drugs. Or it could mean that they actually didn't, like Tony Pan Craig didn't actually get to those drugs as they were dropped. There's so much this video is getting on. It's like an hour and 20 minutes, and I haven't started editing. This is going to be like over an hour long. I'm going to leave it there. You know, there's a lot more to say about that ending. Of course, it could go on forever about what was said there, but I would like to think that the drug drop was absolutely definite. If there was a drug drop and they were there to collect, that means where did it go? Where were the drugs? Where were they dropped? Did they get to them? If they did get to them, they had them on them, and they had them in the Range Rover. That means the shooter or Damon Alvin has taken them. They've stolen them. You know. These are just the answers we're never going to know, because unfortunately Nipper's dad has died and Tony Pan Craig are dead. You know, it's just a situation that we're never going to get the answers to. You know, obviously we can dream and think about that. Nipper is making another video, a part 2 to this. So, again, I just want to thank Lee. Thank you very much for allowing me to use the footage of your interview. I really do appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed the video. I've been given permission to also use little bits of footage from the next interview also, so you know, look out for that. Again, please do subscribe to his channel, because like I say, there are people filtering through who have got stories, and he's just arranging those different ideas and how to put them together to put them in to the channel, without incriminating anybody. So yeah, it's Liquid Bullet Productions, as I say, and the description and the link to the channel is down below. Do subscribe and put your notification bells on, because it's going to be a very interesting channel to watch regarding this Essex Boys case. I appreciate your time, guys. I really do hope you enjoyed that. Again, I need to stress these are just my thoughts and ideas. Don't construe them as being the truth. I appreciate your time. Take care of yourselves, guys.